Hello, everyone. My name is Jeffrey. Here, I'd like to share some of my knowledge about the unit testing. We're using the C Sharp. Okay, so here, perhaps this is just uh, to give you the example. So what I'll do about this, so this is we are using the Visual Studio 2022. So this is so I'm planning to create three parts of the discussion. This is the part one, which is still the basic stuff about the unit testing. So we are using the X unit in this discussions. Okay, so first, so these are all the standard naming conventions that we're gonna be using it. So normally, if you want to create the unit testing, your project name dot test, and in ideal situations, you need to create a reference into your class library. Okay, so you want to create you want to add the Microsoft.NET.test SDK, but on top of that, we are adding the XUnit. And if you're running using the Visual Studio, I guess the XUnit runner will be very useful because it will give you a GUI interface um, uh, to to show you which unit that's working or not. Okay, so first thing first that we're gonna be creating, which is the blank solutions. Okay, so here what I'll do, I'll try to create the project from scratch as well as the copy pasting from the pre-existing code. Okay, so I've already prepared some of the code in my other screens, but then I think it'll be easier for everyone to learn. Okay, so this is solutions, the one that we're gonna be using. So it's entirely up to you what you wanna put it in. So perhaps I'll put in a temp folder. I put like a web solutions, perhaps demo. Okay. Okay, so this is my web solutions demo. So first thing first that we're gonna be doing, we want to create the class library. So here I'm gonna create a simple, starting from a simple stuff. Okay, so we create a class library. A class library here, perhaps the name of class library, math utils, right? So that's the one that we're gonna be creating, math utils. We are choosing .NET 8. Target Framework .NET 8, which is long-term support. As you know, they have already released the .NET 10 as well, um, but at this stage, it doesn't really matter. We can just use .NET 8. Okay. So first, class library, we create this. So in this class library, we also create the interface. I guess this is a common approach. Okay. So if you want to create uh, you want to create a concrete class, the normal, the standard implementation also, your concrete class will implement some of the interface. Okay, so in here, it's quite straightforward. Your interface contains of perhaps these three methods, right? So that's your interface, okay? So you have the standard method for plus, where it's like the x plus y, and then you also have the method to sum up collections of numbers, and you also have the method containing the conditions. In this case, we're gonna be using the guard clause. Okay, so in your my math, you will be implementing those interface. Okay, so you are going to implement those interface. Okay, so come on. Okay, you're gonna be implementing those interface. So inside those interface, that will be pretty straightforward. For plus, you just want to return x plus y, and here for the plus, perhaps you want to do like a loop through. Okay, So for each, you can say for each integer n in numbers, right? So sum, do that, return sum, okay? So lastly about this, which is pretty much similar, right? Like this. So you can have the return x plus y, again, the same, okay? But normally, what you normally do here, you will say if equal, if it's x less than 0, that you want to throw some argument out of range, or perhaps the out of range exceptions. Name of x, which value, which is x. Of course, x shouldn't be less than 0. That's for instance, that's um, the message, right? So there'll be the same thing like y, like this. Okay. Okay. So here, right? So here you have two options, right? So you have two options. Either you want to use standard options like this, right? Or you can just install the third-party plugins called Guard. Guard will save a lot of your code, in writing the code, because by using Guard here, right? So you can just simplify this code into something like this. Guard, okay. So what you are going to do, Guard, okay, and then you're gonna be fixing using this guardnet, okay, not less than, which is the same approach, right? If x less than 0, okay, then you want to implement the top part, okay, and you will have the same implementations as above. Okay, so it's entirely up to you which one that you want to choose. Okay, so you can just use the first approach without using the third party option one, which is like native.NET framework, or you want to use the Guard third party. Okay, so the next part, right? So we've done our class library here. Okay, so the next part that we want to create, which is the test file. Okay, so test file you can just directly using the unit testing like this. Okay, but perhaps if you want to create everything from scratch, you can just do using the class library as well. It doesn't really matter. So in this case, since we are using maths.utils, right? So you can say mathutils.test, right? So that will be something that want to uh, you want to create. Okay. Okay. So here, right? So here you need, first thing first, what you need to do, right? So here perhaps you want to say math, right? So normally, and again, this is naming standard naming conventions, right? So if you want to test this file, so normally the standard conventional, you will say math test like this. Okay, so it'll rename everything, right? So here, before you do anything about this, right? So there are some of the dependencies that we want to install, right? So some of the dependencies that we want to install, we want to install the native Microsoft .NET tests, right? So this is the one that we're gonna be installing. Okay, the versions that we want to install doesn't really matter, which is the latest one. It doesn't quite rely on on your target framework, so it doesn't really matter. And you want to install, as I mentioned, which is the XUnit, right? So this is the XUnit, of course, the latest one, latest versions, and also the XUnit dot runner, right? So since I'm using the Visual Studio 2022, if you're using some other IDE, perhaps you do not need that one. That's specifically for Visual Studio. Okay, so we've got everything packages being installed here. Okay, so now go back to the slides, right? So we've discussed about this. So the next part, what we need to do in order for us to get all the access to the our class library, we want to add the reference, right? So adding the reference, right? You can just do right click, or it's just that particular right click, it will add this part, right? So if you do not like to do any right click, so you can just add this particular text. Okay. Okay, so there are three stages in running testing, right? So arrange, act, and assert. Arrange whenever we want to define the variables. Act, we want to actions. We want to trigger some methods. Assert, we want to evaluate, right? We want to evaluate. We want to do some sort of comparison, right? And that's uh, where you want to do. Okay, so I'm gonna be writing that one later. Okay, so first thing first, right? So first thing first, what we're gonna be doing, let's say we wanna create uh, the method public void plus fact test. Okay, so here, right? So in the unit testing, right? So again, in unit testing, there are two main attributes that you need to follow. First, what we call as a fact. Another one, what we call as theory, right? Fact, it's just run once, okay? Meaning that you do not pass any variables, right? So if you have looked the example here, right? So you'll see many uh, repetitive codes. Whereas like theory, right? So you just put one code, right? Here, by using inline data, you can pass the parameters inside your uh, your unit test method, okay? So here, okay, so here, let's say if you want to use fact, right? So fact here, okay, so it will using uh, XUnit, right? So perhaps we can instead of recreating your instance all the time, so we can just use the uh, uh, we can just define on the top, right? So we can just define on the top new IMATs, right? So in here. Okay, so you have the options whether you want to, um, hang on, new math, yeah, new math instead of IMAT, sorry, interface. You cannot create interface. Okay, so first it's arrange, right? So the arrange in the standard, or we can just create this one, okay, using this one. However, this approach, it is not really good. Imagine that you have let's say two methods, more than one methods, then you have to do like this all the time, right? So you will be facing a lot of repetitive codes, right? So you want to avoid that, and that's the reason your arrange will be once on the top here, right? And you can just reuse this particular instance over and over throughout this class, okay? And then what we're gonna be doing here, right? So perhaps you can just say for result here, you wanna say my maths, let's say maths plus, let's say 2 and 2, right? So the result will be 4, right? So if you have look here, 2 plus 2 plus 2 equal to 4, right? Where is it? Here, right? So if you have look this, and then this is how we say act, right? So you can just assert. The assert here, you will say assert equal, we are expecting the result 2 from this result, okay? So if we want to run this, what we're gonna be doing, just do right click, run test. Right here in the next tab, Text Explorer, you will see one of your testing running successful. One test found. Oh, okay, that's good. What's been happening? Have a look. Oh, should be 4. My bad. Should be 4. Okay. should be 4, which is expected, right? So if you're using fact, right, so have a look like this. If you use in fact, you can just remove this one and combine into the same method like this. Okay, but by using fact, if you want to keep testing, let's say multiple, let's say you have these 10, let's say 5, 5, or 3, and 3. Hang on. Uh, and then perhaps you want to have 6, 8, 4, 4. Okay, so if you run again, you'll have like the successful test. Okay, but it is considered as a 1, right? Because it will run once. Okay, so this can be simplified um, by using theory. Okay, by using theory like this, theory. Okay, you can simplify your code. Okay, so here you want to pass uh, integer expected result, which is integer x, integer y. Okay, so here what you gotta be doing here, you'll be expected. Okay, so you want to change this x plus y. So you can just do something like this. Okay, and it will cause an error because theory must have a test data. See that one? You don't have test data, therefore in here we will inject the test data. In line data, what's the data that we're going to be injecting? Let's say 10, 5, 5. Okay, and again you want to inject, let's say 6, let's say 3, 3. Okay, the moment that we run this, right? Okay, I need to build and rerun everything. Run the test. You can just also run from here, run all tests, and you will see there are 3 tests. See that one? Plus theory, right? So you are running multiple tests, which is this one and this one. Okay, and that's how you differentiate between fact and theory. Okay, so you have many options, right? So you have many options whether you want to combine your method uh, using something like this, or you want to do like an individual. That's how you want to write the testing, right? So suppose that you have the how to test valid, how to test invalid. The whole idea of unit testing, you want to test every single combinations. Okay. So another thing that we want to test, perhaps uh, this part, right? So you want to test the invalid. Okay, so we want to test the invalid. Okay, so I'll just run the copy paste here. So we want to test the invalid, right? So we know that if the x less than 0, then it will throw an argument out of exceptions, right? Using this particular um, class or method. Okay, so if we run this, you will see I should have just built first. So I built everything. Rerun all tests. Okay, you will see here, right? Because that's the expected, right? So this is the expected. If anything, if it's less than zero, then it will throw this. Okay, so one last thing before we finish off the segment 1, you can also run through the command prompt. Okay, so if you want to run through the command prompt, uh, cd mathutils tests, okay, .NET tests. Right, so here you'll know what's been happening. This is if you prefer to use uh, the console. Okay. Okay. In the next part, we're gonna be discussing about how to create the third party called AutoFac And this is the third party to create dependency injections. Okay. Okay. I think that's about it for now, and I'll see you in the next recording. Thank you. Bye.